We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you for all of you for joining us today. My name is Tracy Watts. I'm the Director of the Office of Community Development, Local Government Assistance. And also joining me today is Blake Fogelman from the Department of Health, as well as Jonathan McFarland from the Department of Environmental Quality. Today, we're going to discuss the water sector program that was recently created. We're going to talk about the source of funds, some specific information regarding the water sector program, the submittal process that you will use to submit your application, as well as the forms that you'll use to do so. Just some general information that we want to share with you about the presentation. We're going to cover all of the information today. You can enter any questions that you have into the Q&A during the presentation. You can also submit written questions to the email box of wspinfo@la.gov. We will be posting FAQs on the online portal, and we will continue to update those FAQs as we go through the process and we receive additional questions. The source of funding for the water sector program is the American Rescue Plan Act, which was signed into law on March 11th of 2021. The Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds was established in the ARPA. These funds are being passed through to the U.S. Department of Treasury, and there are requirements that are on the U.S. Department of Treasury's website that would be important for this program. We have information there is the interim final rule published in the Federal Register on May 17th of 2021. The U.S. Treasury also has a list of FAQs that are on their website as well. And we have put links to these items on our portal as well for your review. So the water sector program was established by Act 410 of the 2021 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature. If you review the legislation, you'll also see that Act 410 created the Water Sector Commission that plays an important part in the program. Eligible applicants to the program are public water systems or community sewage systems that, and I've placed the definitions here, that are in the Louisiana Administrative Code. It basically covers all water systems or sewer systems throughout the state. If you'll notice, it says public water systems that serve at least 15 service connections or regularly serves an average of at least 25 individuals daily, at least 60 days out of the year. And for the sewage systems, it just says a system that serves multiple connections and consists of a collection and pumping or transport system and treatment facility. All applicants to the program are required to have a DUNS number. That's a federal requirement. All applications will be accepted through the online portal, and user IDs will not be issued until a local government has an active DUNS number. If you do not have a DUNS number, you can get one online at www.dnb, that stands for Dun and Bradstreet.com, or by calling 1-800-705-5711. The amount of funds that are available in the program, the Louisiana Legislature allocated $300 million of the state fiscal recovery funds to this program. There is a grant funding cap in the approved guidelines. $5 million will be allowed per application with the following exceptions. Projects that involve consolidation can increase that cap by the number of systems that are going to participate in the project. For instance, if System A applies to consolidate with two other systems, System B and System C, then they could request a maximum of 15 million because 3 systems are involved in the application. Also, if an exception to the cap is approved by the Water Sector Commission and the Joint Legislative Committee on Budget. Eligible activities are listed in the ARP, and they coincide with activities that are eligible under the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund, as well as the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And we've given some examples here of the types of projects that are eligible under the program. Improvements to enable systems to comply with drinking water regulations, infrastructure, capital improvements, including the installation and replacement of failing treatment and distribution systems, consolidation of existing drinking water systems, constructing or improving and repairing wastewater treatment plants, control of non-point sources of pollution, improving resilience of infrastructure to severe weather events, or creating green infrastructure, protecting water bodies from pollution, or stormwater repairs and improvements. Some ineligible activities for the water sector program are development of new systems for new housing construction or development, improvements to eligible water or sewer systems owned by federal agencies, improvements to eligible water systems to foster growth, or refinancing debt of eligible water or sewer systems. There are some additional program requirements that are not all inclusive, but we felt like we needed to point out to you. All applicants, again, must have an active DUNS number registered in www.sam.gov. Applicants that are seeking fees for design professionals must have procured these professionals in accordance with federal regulations. If you have any questions about that, you can call us and we can talk to you about that. The use of prevailing wages is encouraged in the U.S. Treasury guidance. However, it is not required. Some other important notes that we wanted to point out. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, does not apply to Treasury's administration of these funds. However, it's important for you to realize that if other federal financial assistance is used in conjunction with these funds, then the project is still subject to a NEPA review. When combining funds from different funding sources for a project, remember that all compliance for all funding will apply to the entire project. The period of performance for these U.S. Treasury funds ends December 31st, 2026. Therefore, all projects must be completed and funds drawn from the state by that date. The application submittal process. Applications will be submitted via the online portal. It is open August 1st to September 24th. The form and instructions are in the portal, and we'll go over them in this webinar. Once you've submitted your application in the portal, no additional information should be submitted to the working panel unless requested by a member of the working panel. If any information is requested, you must provide the information within the time frame identified in the request for the additional information. Applications will not be accepted after the deadline of September 24th. For the recommendation and award process, once all applications have been reviewed by the working panel, the OCD-LGA and the Office of Facility Planning and Control will provide recommendations for funding to the Water Sector Commission for review. The Water Sector Commission will review and submit funding recommendations to the Joint Legislative Committee on Budget. These recommendations shall include the proposed matching funds unless the Water Sector Commission recommends a waiver of matching funds or a reduction of the match requirement. The JLCB has final approval for funding for the project. It's important to note that no money shall be expended from the fund without approval from the JLCB. For project implementation, All grantees will be required to participate in a rate study of the funded system. DOA will hire a third party to conduct the rate studies, and the funded system must take action that is needed and identified by the rate study before OCDLGA will issue authorization to bid. Completed plans and specifications must be submitted to LDH for review and approval prior to authorization to bid as well. Additional guidance will be provided to grantees regarding processes to request funds and implement projects after the award. There are some projects that were included in HB2 and identified by the Office of Facility Planning and Control that will be imported into the portal. These systems will be notified of any additional information that's needed, how to submit the information that's needed, and the deadline to submit this information. These applications will be reviewed by the working panel regarding the same criteria as the applications submitted through the portal. For match requirements, there's a minimum of 25% match requirement. These funds must be used to pay for all engineering fees, including resident inspection fees. An applicant may request a waiver or reduction of the match requirements. Projects that involve consolidation of systems will be considered for a waiver or reduction of the match requirement. This is a list of the application scoring criteria, and we're going to go through each one individually. For project severity and needs, up to 40 points can be earned. It's important to include all pertinent information. Do you have personal statements from customers on the system regarding issues? Have there been news articles written about the system discussing the issues with the system? Are there pictures that support the identified problems in the application? Do you have social media posts? Are there records or field investigations that support the severity of the problems? These are things that you should include in your application when you submit it. Violations of the federal and/or state laws or regulations will be listed in the application, and you want to include all that you think helps to paint the picture of the need of the system. If you do not submit complete or accurate information, a lower score could be issued. For consolidation, 2 or more existing water or sewer systems combining into one larger system. That's the definition in the program of a consolidation. The responsible consolidated system, meaning the system that is the result at the end of the project, has to own, operate, and maintain all of the other systems post-consolidation. Purchase-only systems or bulk sale systems are not considered a consolidation. For resilience, you can earn up to 10 points. Many water systems are being required to complete a risk and resilience assessment by Section 2013 of the Americans Water Infrastructure Act of 2018. If you have completed your plan, you should include the plan in your application. If you have not completed your plan, you should include an update on your progress with a timeline for completion. All water and sewer systems should have a resiliency plan that includes local standards or guidelines and addresses extreme weather events. The effect of water and wind damage to critical infrastructure, what must be done during and after an extreme weather event to maintain operating capabilities of critical infrastructure. Items that are identified in your plan must be included in your cost estimate, showing that you're going to address those items in this proposed project. For sustainability, you can earn up to 15 points. There are 3 facets that will be considered for the sustainability criteria: technical, managerial, and financial. For technical, you're going to be discussing the infrastructure of the system, the technical ability of the system personnel to implement and operate the project, and an analysis of the alternatives including but not limited to consolidation. You will be providing information regarding the qualification of your system personnel and the status and condition of the system infrastructure. For managerial, you're going to be talking about the management structure of the system, including ownership, accountability, staffing, and organization. You would provide information regarding the governing body, transparency, and accountability, looking at who is the full board, your regular meeting schedule, and any management training, adopted policies and procedures that are in place regarding any general policies that you have, as well as personnel, any contracts in place, or customer billing procedures that you have in place. For financial capacity, it refers to the financial resources of the system, including revenue, creditworthiness, fiscal controls, and a financial strategy that reflects the full life cycle costs and adequate revenues to ensure the system is sufficiently funded, maintained, and replaced as needed. You should provide financial reports to show the cost of operating the system and the revenue received by the system. Documentation identifying your internal control structure is also needed. The next criteria is readiness to proceed. You can earn up to 15 points. Any agreements or reports that have been executed or in place or complete could get you points in this category. If you've already taken some steps to prepare your system to undertake this project, you would supply us with that information and copies of the agreements so that we can review them and ensure that you get the needed points. Have you executed any agreements with any other systems in an effort to consolidate? Have you completed a system improvement plan or a preliminary engineering report? Or do you have full plans and specs for this project? That's the type of information that we would need to see and you would upload into the portal. The final criteria is the increased local cost share, where you can get up to 15 points. Again, there's a 25% match requirement. In this slide, you can see a breakdown that if you as the applicant want to increase your local match percentage, you can earn additional points in the rating criteria. Now we're going to go over how to gain access to the online portal. All users must obtain a user ID from our office. You would complete the user access form, which we're going to discuss, and email it to me at Tracy, TRACI, .watts, WATTS, at la.gov. User IDs will be sent via email to the address identified on the completed access request forms when they are available. There are user roles in the program portal. A water or sewer system can have someone set up as a creator and or a submitter. This person must be a system employee or a board member for private systems or an elected official for municipal systems, whoever is the chief executive officer of the system. All systems must have at least one person set up with submitter access. This means that that person can submit the application in the program portal. Only a user from the water or sewer system can submit the application. Consultant access can be granted to an engineer or an administrative consultant. This will give an engineer access to create or edit an application, but will not give them access to submit the application. We must have approved user access for a system user, submitter access, before we can approve access to a consultant for a system. We can process these forms simultaneously if they've submitted them together. We cannot give a consultant access to a system application without having a system user set up in the portal. A consultant may work with multiple systems. In this case, the consultant would need to submit a form for each system they are choosing to work with. So for the system, as it says here, you would have an employee, board member, or elected official gaining access. They would only have access to their system's application. You could have a system user that can only create or edit, and a different system user that can submit the application. It is up to you how you would like to set that up. But remember that at least one user must have submitter access for the system itself. And with an administrative consultant, an engineer, or an architect, you can have access to multiple systems. You must complete a form for each system, and you will only have create or edit access. This is the form that you'll complete. We're going to go over it really quickly. As you can see in the access type field, you can choose creator, submitter, or consultant, engineer, or architect. Remember again that a system must have at least one system user with submitter access in the portal. This must be received before I can grant access to a consultant or engineer. You're going to enter the system name. You will mark whether you have a sewer or water system, or in the case of some municipal systems, you may actually have both, and you can mark both. There's a drop-down box that lets you choose municipal, private not-for-profit, or private for-profit, or tribal. Municipal systems are ones that are owned and operated by local government. Next, we ask that you enter your LDH region number and your system federal tax ID number. If you have marked that you have a water system, then you would enter the PWS ID number. If you've marked that you have a sewer system, you would enter the DEQ agency interest number. If you have marked both of those, you would enter both the PWS ID number and the DEQ agency interest number. You should be able to find these numbers in correspondence with these agencies regarding your system. If you don't know those numbers offhand, you will need to enter the DUNS number for the system. Remember, this is a federal requirement, and all applicants have to include this number. Next, you will include your LGOV vendor number. This is the number that you set up with the state of Louisiana to identify how payments should be made, if funded. If you already have the number, you will enter it here. If you do not, you can click on the link in the form and begin the process to get a vendor number. If you do this, please mark that the vendor registration is in progress. If you are awarded funds in the program, you must have a DUNS number and a LGOV vendor number before any payments can be made. The username should be entered with the title of the user and the last four of the Social Security number of the user. This is for security purposes only. These numbers are connected to the user in the database so that you can set up your password when you log in initially and to change your password at any time. You will enter the parish where the system is located, the mailing address of the system, the email address of the user, and the telephone number of the user. Then the user will sign the form and date it. Finally, the Chief Executive Officer of the system will need to sign the form. You will print the name and title of the CEO, have them sign the form, and date the form. We must verify all of the information on this form independently. Then we send a request to our Office of Technology Services to get the ID issued, and then we will email that ID back to the user. We will work on processing them as quickly as possible. Now we're going to go through what the portal looks like and the different fields that you're going to have to complete in the forms that are in the portal itself. This is a screenshot of what the portal looks like, and at the bottom of the screen is the web address for the portal. I want to point out that all of the documents that are listed there under relevant documents or items that could be of interest to you. The last item on the list, it says list of items that are needed to complete the application. Those are all of the things that you should need to prepare your application. So while you are gaining access to the portal, you can begin working on gathering the information that is identified in this list. When you click Login, this is the page that you'll see. The first time you log in, you will click on the link on the right that says Wolf Password Maintenance Application. This is where you'll set up your password. Once you set up your password, then you will enter your MID and then your password to log in. If you try to log in and have any issues or get a message that says you are locked out, please email me at tracy.watts@la.gov with your user ID, the portal name, and explain the problem. I will work with our technology office to get the user ID unlocked. While you can call me to discuss an issue, I will have to receive the request in writing from the email address of the user so that we can verify the user before unlocking the account. When you log in, you'll go to the application page. You will choose a water or sewer application. If you're a municipal entity that owns both systems, you will be allowed to submit an application for each system, so you will click the appropriate link on the screen. This is the application information page. We will go over each section of the application individually and talk about what needs to be entered there. The first section is at the top. You'll see that some information is populated already. If you open this application and any of the information that is populated at the top of the screen is incorrect, please contact me so that we can make sure that all information is corrected. You will enter the number of connections on your system, the total amount of your grant request. You will enter the amount of construction costs, which includes all construction costs, including contingencies. Any acquisition costs, a total amount for all fees, which are permitting fees, engineering fees, or administrative fees. And then the total box below automatic populates, and it totals the fields that you've entered. That total should equal the amount that you enter for your total amount of grant request. It should reconcile there. The next section is population and income impact. You will enter this information for the area that is impacted by the project. So the area in which your system is located, that's where you go and get this information regarding median income, population growth rate, and unemployment percentage. Next is the area that discusses the increased local cost share. Points will be awarded for those applicants that are providing an increased local match. You will enter a number that goes out to 1 decimal point. For instance, if your local match is 42.3% of the total project cost, then you would enter 42.3. We're ready to proceed. If you have any of those documents that we discussed previously, you would load them here by clicking on Choose File. You would name the document on the left and save it. Note that you can add multiple documents here. If you're requesting a waiver of the match requirement, you will indicate that here. You will click on the drop-down box and then add documentation to support why the system cannot provide the 25% match to the total cost of the project. If you're requesting a waiver of this match, your support must include the amount of ARP funds that your entity received in the ARP NEU program, if any, and justification as to why those funds cannot be used to meet the match requirement. Next, you'll give us a detailed cost estimate that needs to be prepared, signed, and stamped by a professional engineer licensed in the state of Louisiana. The cost estimate should identify all project costs, not just the costs that are included in the grant request. A 10% construction contingency is allowed, and all funding sources and uses should be included as well on the cost estimate. Now we're going through a form that's going to collect information regarding the project severity, consolidation, sustainability, and resilience. In order to access the form, you'll click on the blue word form there, and the form will download for you to complete. Please read the form carefully and complete all the information. You will provide a list of existing violations and issues that will assist the working panel in the review of your application. Any separate documents that you upload in the supporting documentation section of the application should be referred to in this document. For example, if you upload personal statements, news articles, social media posts in the supporting documentation section, then you should note on this form that the information is provided in that section for support. Next, you're going to provide a description of the proposed improvements, as well as information regarding the current size or capacity of the system and the area served by the system. Indicate if any acquisition is going to be required to complete the project. Explain the violations or issues that you'll be addressing in your project, and your proposed project should be remedying the violations or issues that you indicated before. Read each bullet carefully and make sure that you are addressing each item. I'm going to ask if Blake wanted to add anything about that section before I move on to the next section.
Hey, Tracy, I think we're good. I think I'll just defer if there's any specific questions later on that come up in the Q&A. We can circle back to it. I know people are posting a bunch right now on different topics.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is regarding options for consolidation. So here you're going to include a discussion of options for consolidation with neighboring systems, what factors were considered, and what determinations were made based on these factors. List the systems that were considered and any personnel at these systems that were contacted in these discussions. And finally, you'll list any agreements that are in place regarding consolidations or are currently being executed. For resilience, the deadlines and information regarding the emergency response plans required by the AWIA is included here. If you have not completed your plan as of yet, include a timeline for completion. You're also given specific information here about what you need to provide. A primary goal of this program is to create and support sustainable sewer and water systems. Sustainability is broken down here into 3 categories: technical, managerial, and financial. We discussed previously when we were going over the specific criteria, and we talked about information or documents that you may want to submit to support your information here. Here is the section where you will upload any supporting documentation that you feel like tells your story. Anything that's going to support the need for your project. Please include some identifying information in the name of your document so that it's easy for us to understand what it is. Also remember to refer to these documents in the completion of your form as we discussed. It is important to include as much as necessary to make your case. Here, you can enter any comments that you feel you need to share with the reviewers. And you see at the bottom of the screen, there is a save and submit, and a cancel button. I encourage you to save as you go through the process several times. the system does time out. And so it's important that you continue to save as you work on your application. When you have everything ready to go and you're ready to submit, then you will click Save and Submit. For those users that do not have access to submit, you should not have the Submit button at the bottom of your screen when you're working in the application. Here's some resources for you that you may want to explore. We do have some information on our website, the OCD LGA website, about the water sector program, and we will continue to put more information out there. You may want to visit the U.S. Treasury website, where they have guidance about the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. And there is also the web address to the online application portal. Very soon, the Division of Administration will also have information regarding the portal on the front page of their website as well. Again, if you have any questions that we aren't able to answer today, or that you think of after our webinar today, then you can submit those questions to wspinfo@la.gov. We will post FAQs on the portal, and we will continue to update those FAQs as needed. I encourage you to follow our Facebook page. We post reminders or notifications, any kind of funds that are available, etc., on our page. It's the quickest, easiest way for you to ensure that you're receiving this information. So I encourage you to follow us there. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to receiving your requests. We're going to exit out of the webinar here. And we're going to go into see if there are anything that we can answer now in the Q&A. I know, Blake, you've been tracking the questions here, and Jonathan as well. Do you want to go ahead, Blake, to address some things that you think that we need to talk about in the time that we have left?
One of the big things that I saw, and I think Heather has been doing a pretty good job of trying to answer, I would say if anyone opens the Q&A, there are open questions and then there are answered questions. I know there's been a lot put in the chat as well, but she has answered a few of those. One of the big things was a question between applying for NEU and then being able to apply for water sector as well. And you obviously you can apply for both of those. There was a question regarding public, private, all that. Anyone that can apply for a loan program can apply for this. And so if your board is a water district under a parish, but has the authority to encumber debt and apply to a loan on its own, then you would be able to apply on your own here as well. So it's basically, the requirement is having a public water system ID number. There's no further requirement on our end. It doesn't have to go through municipality, much like the CDBG program where not-for-profits can apply. This is something that you can apply for directly. That's the two big ones that stood out to me. Heather, if there's any that you want me to answer, or Tracy, I'd be happy to.
I've noticed that there are several questions about the projects from HB2 and how they will be notified. Our office will reach out to all of the systems that are included in the projects that are imported into the portal. So that's how you will be notified. We will reach out to you and make sure that we get you access into the portal so that you can complete the information that's needed. I don't have that list right now, so I can't provide it to you right now. But once I do have it, again, we will reach out to those systems and let them know.
I'm also seeing some questions about the procurement of engineers, and I know there's quite a few engineers on. Much like the CDBG program, if the engineer is paid for with local funds, it doesn't have to go through the federal procurement requirements, but it can be part of your match, eligible for to show that you've provided match. So I think it was a little confusion with the wording, but if it's paid for locally, it can be applied as match. If you're asking for it to be paid for through this program, that's when you have to follow all those guidelines set by the procurement guidelines.
And for the local governments that received ARP non-entitlement unit funds, remember that you can use those funds in conjunction with these funds. However, if you do use those funds to pay for engineering services, administrative services, then you do have to follow federal procurement requirements when hiring those persons. The compliance for the ARP NEU funds is between the local government and the U.S. Treasury. That's not something that we will monitor, but I just want y'all to know that that requirement is there. Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing specific to add. Happy to answer any questions regarding DEQ specifically.
Okay. Maybe, let's see. There was a question regarding, it says the form does not list drainage under system category. How do you specify drainage projects? At the time when the portal was created and prior to the approval of the guidelines, we had not prepared for receiving applications for drainage. That's why the portal is not set up that way. The commission has asked that we be able to accept applications for drainage projects in round 2 or a later round, which is scheduled. I'm gonna have to go look and see because I've forgotten when that date is. The second round, the portal would be open or is scheduled to be open January 3rd to February 18th. So we anticipate having the ability to accept applications for drainage projects at that time. The next question, if you're submitting a grant request for both water and sewer, will the grant cap be for $5 million total per applicant or $5 million per project? My understanding is that the cap would be $5 million per system. Blake or Jonathan, do y'all agree with that?
Say that again, Tracy.
My understanding is that the cap would be per system. So they would be able to get or apply for $5 million for a water system and or $5 million for a sewer system.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
I do see a question asking about DEQ's SRF funding being utilized as matching funds. So in general, I guess the question goes back to what other forms of funding can be utilized as match as far as federal funding. Of course, SRF, either drinking water or clean water, would be considered a federal or pseudo-federal source of funds.
Yeah, Jonathan,
go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, just to be aware, understand with our programs, both water and sewer, or both LDH and DEQ requirements, there is a list of federal requirements that are required by that. And so if this is a crossover and this is under one project, every dollar that is spent toward that project, if it involves one loan program dollar, you have to meet all the federal guidelines for that project. And Tracy, I don't know if you want to go further into the guidance we were given from the federal level when it came to prevailing wage rates, American Iron Steel, all those extra stuff. I think we got a lot of guidance or recommendations, but no clear-cut requirements when it came to that. And so we do have clear-cut requirements under the loan programs. And so if you start blending those monies, the leading edge of that will be that you have to meet all the federal requirements of our loan program.
Yes, that was one of the things that I noted back in the slide presentation when I talked about some important notes. If you blend monies with other programs, you are going to bring in other compliance. So for example, if you apply for $5 million with the funds in this program, and you applied for $1 million from the LCDBG program, so you have a total of a $6 million project. That means that your prevailing wage requirements so you must use Davis-Bacon for the entire $6 million project. You must conduct an environmental review for the entire $6 million project. What you could do is, if you can create separate and distinct projects for the different funding sources that can stand on their own and be completed on their own and be completed through separate construction contracts, then you don't have to merge those monies. So if you had a $5 million project done on your water treatment plant, and you had $1 million that you funded through ARP, and then you had $1 million project that you applied to LCDBG to do line repair, that's two separate and distinct projects. You could bid them separately, and then they would not, the compliance from LCDBG would not apply to the ARP funds that you're going to get through the water sector program. And I think the same would apply with the loan monies from DEQ and LDH. If you merge the monies together, the compliance is going to apply to all of the funds. There's another question that says, is this program only for utilities that sell water and wastewater? This is a program to address improvements to water and sewer systems, yes, or water and wastewater systems. So that is what this is addressing.
Tracy, I see a couple about timelines, application deadline. I know we mentioned the portal opening and closing. There's a couple questions about the rest of those dates that fall in line after that, the turnaround of notifying applicants of award and all that.
Okay, so on the portal and on our website as well, we have a link to the approved guidelines for the program from the Water Sector Commission. And there is a section in those guidelines that discusses the timeline for the program. The online portal will open August 1st to September 24th. We will be providing panel ratings to the commission by November 8th of 2021. The online portal will open again January 3rd to February 18th. And then we will provide panel ratings to the commission by April 4th of 2022. Once we provide the panel ratings to the Water Sector Commission, the Water Sector Commission will review that information, and then they will provide recommendations for funding to the Joint Legislative Committee on Budget. And that's where the actual awards will occur. I would encourage you to go through the Treasury guidance. I would especially encourage you to read through the FAQs on the Treasury website. Many people have submitted questions to Treasury and they're answering those specific questions. So it may be things that you are thinking about or asking. And all of the requirements from Treasury are applicable to these funds. We have one question that says, our parish has 2 water districts with 2 LDH numbers that are managed by the parish administration. Are 2 separate applications required? I would say yes. Blake, what would your answer be?
So there's a couple questions about that, Tracy, and I may need to get with you and we can come back to it. Regarding if a
Okay.
parish owns and operates, say, 3 systems, and some of their work is going to span across those 3 systems, maybe some piping work in the systems or something like that, or a tank in one and another. What should be the prevailing single PWS ID if required on an application? So obviously in the guts of the application, they would describe it, but when it comes to getting in the portal and applying and those types of things, we may need to clear that up and get back to them on that.
Okay.
And there's one requesting, and you and I think spoke briefly about it this morning, and I've got even prior to this is, hey, if a project has already been bid, can it still apply for ARP funds? Again, I think that's something we would have to come back to and post on a FAQ or something at a later date and discuss with the commission and the working panel on how they want to handle. At what point is a project committed, and at what point can that project be submitted as an ARP project or a water sector project?
Okay. There was a question, are separate applications required to be submitted for each project? Or is one application submitted by each public water system inclusive of all projects where funding is requested? So the intention is that the application from the public water system will address all violations of that system that need to be handled. So I would say one application would be submitted identifying all of the things that you would address in that application.
And I think that's going back to asking if I have multiple projects or multiple systems under one ownership, do you apply for each one of those? And I think it would be per owner essentially. So you would have to apply for one time and try to get as much of the work across those 3 projects as you can. But again, I think clarity would have to come from the commission and discussing with the working panel and posting some formal answer online.
Okay. I'm just making a note to go back and check on that. Okay, we just have a couple more minutes left, so let's see if there's any other ones that we can address now. There was a question about the user access forms. I know there was some confusion on those, so I'll go through that again. A system must have someone that is a system employee or a member of the board or elected official that has access in the system, and every system must have at least submitter access in the system, in the portal. I'm sorry. I need that prior to being able to issue access to a consultant or engineer for the system. If a consultant or an engineer or an architect wants access to an application, they have to complete that form for every system that they want to get access to. The system has to sign that form at the bottom, and it needs to be the chief executive officer of that system granting permission for the consultant to have access to that application. Let's see. Furnace Pie has multiple water systems. There was a question about if an engineering firm helps with the application, can they bid on the project if awarded? It depends if you're using federal funds to pay for the engineering implementation. If you're going to use federal funds to pay for the engineering, my suggestion to you is that you go through the procurement process prior to submitting that application and having them assist you if you want that engineering firm to be able to bid on the implementation of the project. This is the last one we're going to answer because we're going to have to jump off the call, but remember, we will post an FAQ on the portal for your review as soon as we can prepare that document. It says the system must have both a PWS ID and a DUNS number to submit the application. Yes, the DUNS number is the federal requirement. All systems, water or sewer, must have a DUNS number. If you need any information about how to access a DUNS number, we can send you that. We talked about it in the webinar, but you have to get a DUNS number. You can go to www.dnb.com, which stands for Dun & Bradstreet, to obtain a DUNS number. Any water system that is applying for funds, you have to include the PWS ID on your user access form. Any sewer system that wants to gain access and apply for funds, you need to include the DEQ agency interest number on the user access form in order to get access. Again, if you have both water and sewer and you mark both on your user access form, you need to include both of those numbers on your user access form. All right, we're gonna have to go. We really appreciate you all signing in. Again, please continue to submit any written questions to wspinfo@la.gov. We look forward to getting your requests and assisting you if needed. Have a good day.